And that's a wrap. The Miami Heat just lost in the NBA Finals in Game 6 versus the Los Angeles Lakers. The Heat massively overperformed relative to expectations to begin the year, and even coming into the finals, many people expected them to get swept or lose in 5, especially after losing some players due to injury, but the Heat managed to fight back, force a Game 6, and just get oh so close to winning an NBA-type championship. Still, the Heat have cap space, they have young stars growing into amazing players, and they have a lot to look forward to in their future behind, Jimmy Butler, who has really proven himself to be one of the top players in the NBA. Welcome back, everybody. It's Courtside TV, and today we're going to be talking about the Miami Heat. Now, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel up. I've been producing content for a while now. We're uploading 2-3 times a week, previewing NBA seasons for next year. We're about halfway through the league. We'll be continuing getting through all 30 teams and then branching out into other forms of content as well. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch. We've got all that up and running, and so be sure to subscribe and follow me on all my other socials to see more from Courtside. The team is in this position because of this guy right here, that guy, Jimmy Butler. He has just been so incredible for them this season. This is not at all what the Heat expected when they signed Jimmy Butler last summer, or maybe they did. Maybe they did expect this, but either way, he has just been awesome, and he has absolutely shown his worth, proven himself to be a top 10 player in the NBA. I think we can kind of all agree to that now. Jimmy Butler is not a guy who pops out on the stat sheet often. He doesn't always, go super hard in the regular season, whatever. But this guy is just a winner. He's just a proven winner. He has shown that year after year after year. He was not the problem when he was with the Bulls, Timberwolves, Sixers, and he has shown that this Heat team massively overachieved, and it's because of Jimmy Butler, his leadership, his defense. He makes shots in the clutch. He's just an incredible performer when it matters the most, and Jimmy Butler has really inspired a lot of people this year. I thought he had an awesome season, and he's still got, a lot of years left in him. He's only 31 years old. The Heat have him locked up for 3 more years after this one under contract, and so he's going to be with Miami for the foreseeable future, and they're going to have more chances to contend with Butler on the roster. And with cap space, I would not rule out a Heat return to the finals with Butler at the helm, because they are well set up to contend for the next multiple years, and Jimmy Butler is the core of this team, and he's the reason why they're going to be successful this year and moving forward. And Bam Adebayo turned in another incredible season, making his first All-Star game at 23 years old. Bam has been incredible again for the Heat. He's slowly, blossoming into one of the best centers in the NBA. With his amazing defense, passing ability, he's a great playmaker from the post on the fast break. Bam is definitely one of those great young centers. I think he underwhelmed in the finals, and part of that is probably due to the neck injury that he had. Was playing through, a little bit of discomfort, I would assume, but he didn't play well. A lot of that was probably due to Anthony Davis on the defensive end. But Bam, obviously, I think he'll be okay. This was his first playoff run. At only 23 years old, he's still getting better, and he's got a lot of productive years ahead of him. He is up soon for an extension on his rookie contract. I'm assuming the Heat are going to max him, keep him around, and he is certainly a guy that they're going to continue to build around. He and Butler are really the 2 core pieces of this team, and they're going to be great for the next multiple years going forward. And then the rookie, Tyler Herro. He is not the rookie that a lot of people were talking about for the Heat early on in the season. That was Kendrick Nunn and, to a different extent, Duncan Robinson. But Herro really turned in a great playoff run. He had a couple of shaky moments in the finals here and there, with the Lakers defense swarming him. He looked a little bit overmatched at points, but it makes sense. He's only 20 years old, the youngest player to start in the NBA Finals, I believe. And he was just incredible throughout most of the playoffs, had some really great moments, especially against Boston and earlier against Milwaukee, Indiana. Herro started to play really, really well in the bubble. Everything started to click for him. His offense came together. He still has some things to improve on. His shot selection wasn't great, especially near the start of the game tonight, Game 6. He still needs to improve with his decision-making, his passing, and as well on defense. But he's only 20 years old, and it was a real coming out party for Herro in the bubble, and he has proven to be, a mid round draft steal for the Heat, and this is going to be a guy that's going to be a great scorer in the league for a lot of years to come. I don't know if he'll ever make the All-Star team. Potentially, it's a little too early to tell, but Herro, if he can continue on this track, he's going to be a great player for the Heat. And Goran Dragic was playing like his former All-Star self in the bubble. It really sucks that he was injured in the finals, missed most of it, was able to come back for Game 6, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought he was going to miss the entire series, but he did manage to come back. He did look a little bit slow, was kind of limping around on that leg a little bit, but it's just incredible that he was able to gut it out and play through it in an attempt to get his team over the hump to try to win the title. They didn't end up getting there, but Dragic, just incredible guts to be able to come back and play. And especially on an expiring contract, because he doesn't have a contract for next year, so he was risking re-injury coming back. Luckily, he didn't get hurt again, and he should be healthy for next year. But I mean, we'll have to see what the Heat end up doing with him, because he's 34 years old on an expiring deal, and it looks like they might be trying to conserve cap space. So we'll see what they end up doing with Dragic, but he was amazing for them throughout this playoff run as well. One of the guys who really stepped up and played when the lights were the brightest. It sucks that we didn't get to see him much in the finals due to that injury, but Dragic is certainly a core player for the Heat. He was this year, and we'll have to see what they do with him this offseason. And speaking of free agency, Dragic, like I mentioned, is their big free agent this summer. He's expiring at about $19 million. I would not be surprised, just a prediction from me personally, I would not be surprised to see another one-year deal for Dragic at a similar level to this year. They have that cap space. I believe the amount of cap space they have is pretty much exactly the same as Dragic's expiring salary. About $18, $19, $20 million is how much space they have. Would not be surprised to see them use that space to re-sign Dragic on a one-year deal, because we all know what the summer of 2021 is going to look like, and the Heat have been rumored to be big players in that free agency class out there for guys like Giannis and other players. Potentially looking to make a big splash in free agency. And so Dragic getting older, 34 going on 35, I would not be surprised to see the Heat just roll over that contract one more year, get Dragic back on a one-year deal at about the same level that he's on right now, bring him back and just kind of run this team back again next year while still conserving cap space for the summer of 2021, because we know that they're going to be looking and playing out there for those big free agents. And so Dragic, at his age, I think that makes sense to do another one-year contract and then potentially cash in along with a lot of the other free agents next summer, and come back to this Heat team and have another chance to compete for a title. Now, on Dragic's side, maybe he wants a little bit more of a long-term security, and in that case, maybe the Heat could lower the number and do like a 3-year deal with like maybe $8 or $9 million a season. Maybe would be more advantageous for Dragic to do, just because at his age you're never sure and you want to get that guaranteed money down early. But if it was me and I was betting, I would say that Dragic returns on a one-year deal at about the same number that he's on this year. And then looking down at their other free agents, Solomon Hill is on that expiring contract, $13 million. If they do bring him back, it'll be on a minimum. I don't expect them to. He was just kind of a throw-in to that big trade that they had at the deadline with Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, all those big moving pieces. Solomon Hill was acquired there as well, played very sparingly in the playoffs, had a couple we're putting you in for defense for 10 seconds possession. He had a couple of those in the finals, but other than that, doesn't really play much. Would not be surprised if he walked. Myers Leonard, similarly, really only played when Bam went out with injury, he's the third center behind Bam and Olynyk. Myers Leonard is okay. He can stretch the floor for you a little bit. Great scorer, not amazing on defense. But some other team will take a chance on him. I don't think the Heat are necessarily motivated to bring him back. I think they're okay with Olynyk and Bam as their center rotation. I don't think they really necessarily need Leonard on the roster as the third string. Jay Crowder is a guy that I think they should prioritize to bring back. We saw how valuable he was to this team, being able to hit those shots. He's a great defender at the wing position, knows what he's doing, playoff veteran, a tough guy. You need all those tough guys on your team, right? And so Crowder, I think, he'll be very sought after on this summer's free agent market with not a lot of guys out there. I think there will be some teams that will want to offer Crowder, a significant amount of money for a guy of his caliber. something similar to what he's on right now, $7-8 million a year. Potentially another team would offer that, or like a mid-level exception type deal. But Crowder is one of those guys that you want on your team if you're going for championships, and so I would not be surprised to see the Heat prioritize bringing him back at a contract similar to the one he's on right now. Maybe not, for a long term, but I think he may have found a home here in Miami after being traded around to pretty much every team in the league over the past 4 or 5 seasons. Udonis Haslem, 40 years old, might retire. He probably will. He doesn't play, but he is veteran leadership in the locker room. We saw how valuable he was just as a mentor and a leader. There was all of those articles coming out about Udonis Haslem in the bubble, and he just from a mentorship standpoint, potentially he decides to retire and just sign on as a coach, and he could basically just play the same role as like a coach on the bench, assistant coach type of guy. Would not be surprised to see that happen. Derek Jones is a guy that I think was actually, he might actually be pretty sought after on the market. I kind of like Derek Jones. He's a good defender. He's long for his position, got really long arms, super athletic, can shoot a little bit. And so maybe he didn't have a very big role on this year's team, played a little bit in the playoffs in specific matchups, not very much in the finals. But he is a guy that I could see signing on to another team and having a bigger role. I think there's a good chance he leaves the Heat this offseason just so he can have a bigger role somewhere else. But I do like Derek Jones, and I think he makes sense for a couple other teams. And then that's pretty much it. Other than that, a rookie extension for Bam is possible. I think they'll do it. And then just trying to re-sign Dragic, maybe on the short term, and Jay Crowder. And that would be my offseason checklist for the Heat. So if you're looking at potential trades that the Heat could make this offseason, you really have, a couple options in terms of salary, and it's Kelly Olynyk and Andre Iguodala. Kelly Olynyk has a player option for about $12 million. He's going to take that. That's more than he'll make on the open market. And Iguodala, both of those players are valuable to the Heat. They were both in the rotation, and Iguodala, of course, we saw his defense on Anthony Davis was valuable at points during the finals. As a veteran, he is clearly a proven winner, and Olynyk is a backup center who can kind of stretch the floor for you, pick and pop three-pointer type of player. Different player than Bam Adebayo, so varies up your offense a little bit at points during the game. That's valuable to them. But if a star became available, potentially those two would be packaged in a trade to make salary. The Heat don't necessarily have a lot of young assets to throw into a trade. If they were trading for a star, you're not going to be trading Tyler Herro or Bam Adebayo in a trade for somebody like Rudy Gobert or Drew Holiday. It's just not going to happen. The only way that those two would be traded if it was for somebody like Giannis. But again, like a year ago, Bam and Tyler Herro were like thrown into every trade for a star. It's like, well, they can give up Herro to get Drew Holiday. Herro's a better asset right now than Holiday is, Russell Westbrook, Gobert, whoever is out there on the market, these like all-stars, like these fringe like superstar type players. Herro is a better asset than all those guys, and so is Bam at this point, because both are so young and on their rookie deals, and so those aren't going to be throw-ins for players of that caliber. And so the lack of draft picks that the Heat have, they're kind of stuck with this roster, and not that that's a bad thing, because they are going to have all that cap space in order to potentially sign somebody. But we really are kind of looking at the same team for next year. Now, who knows, maybe there is some type of deal that comes available where you could trade away Olynyk and Iguodala for something. And we'll just have to see if any of that materializes. But this is pretty much the Heat's roster for next year. And I think that's an okay thing. The only thing that I would potentially be concerned about is Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson both being on expiring contracts next year. And so that could potentially eat up a little bit of that cap space they had in that summer. And a Bam extension would obviously eat up that cap space as well. So you're kind of getting into dangerous territory with that. But that's a long ways out at this point, and so we'll have to see what they end up doing. But this is pretty much the Heat roster for next year, and I think that's okay, because I really do think that they have a chance to contend again. So overall, I was really impressed with the season the Heat put together. They came into the playoffs as the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, made it all the way to Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Nobody expected them to be here, and it was all on the back of Jimmy Butler, who carried them the entire way. And they've got really impressive young players in Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Herro, Kendrick Nunn, and just incredibly tough players. They play really hard, super active on defense and just make shots when you need it to happen. They didn't play well tonight, but that's not reflective of what this team was this year and what this team has been during this playoff run. Gotta give credit to Butler, and then of course the veterans like Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, and then the young players like I mentioned. And so this Heat team has been incredibly tough. I love Eric Spoelstra as a coach as well. And so I just got to give my props to them for making it this way, to get to the NBA Finals and push the Lakers to Game 6. Congrats to the Lakers on winning the title. It was well-deserved. A very strange year for the NBA, that's for sure. But that's pretty much all I have to say on the Heat. I think they have a very bright future ahead, and I would be extremely, impressed with this team if I was a Miami fan. Just their fight and their toughness all year long is very commendable. And so it's really refreshing to see a team who really cares about basketball and winning and doesn't care as much about stats and all of the extra stuff. You hear Jimmy Butler say it all the time, but this team really did start to believe it. They're capable of doing anything, and they don't need the triple doubles and the 35-point games. They don't need all that. If it comes, then great, but you don't need the statistics to win. You just need toughness and intensity, and the Heat proved that. And so I think it was very refreshing for the game of basketball to have the Heat in the finals this year and have the success that they did, and I think that they will be back, and hopefully this serves as a blueprint for teams to overachieve in the future, because this team is more than the sum of its parts, and hopefully we'll be able to see some other teams follow in this mold soon in the future, because I really enjoyed watching them. And so that's pretty much it. We'll be back within the next couple of days with a Lakers wrap up after they won the title. We'll be talking about them and how they can potentially get even better than what they were this year. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for my thoughts on the Heat, and I'll see you guys in the next one.